Yeah, hi guys, good afternoon. So this will be our last session. Okay, so on Terraform, I think this is session number 6, right? So this will be our last session on Terraform, and this is pretty small. I mean, we have left with only two topics. Okay, so one is module and one is Terraform workspace. Okay, so let me share my screen just 1 second. Okay, let me share my screen. Hope you guys can see my screen. Yes, bro. Right. Okay. Okay. So we are left with only two topics. One is Terraform modules and one is Terraform workspace. Okay, so let us start working on modules first. There is Terraform nodes. Okay, so basically module is nothing but a collection of configuration files in a directory. Means, for example, if suppose assume that we need to create multiple EC2 instances. Okay, for example, we have the requirement to create two different EC2 instances. One is for the development environment and one is for the production environment. Okay, so let me close this. Okay, so here we have one resource configuration. Similar to this, what I will do, I will add one more resource configuration, right? So what this will do, this will help us to create two different resources in our Terraform. Okay, so if suppose we have 10 tasks, I mean 10 different resources. In the previous example, what we have seen, we have created VPC, subnets, internet gateways, and all the other stuff. I mean security groups, NAT, and everything, right? So for example, if we have got such kind of requirement, so instead of writing that within the same main.tf file, what we can do, we can create multiple .tf files. Means for AWS instance, I can create one AWS underscore instance.tf. For VPC, I can create one VPC.tf. For security group, I can create security group.tf. Okay, so I can have 5 to 6 different TF files. But what will happen? That will increase the complexity, and that will get very difficult for us to understand, as well as there will be a lot of chances for duplication in the code. Okay, again and again we are writing the same piece of code for two different EC2s, right? So I want to avoid this. In such cases, what we can do is we can use Terraform modules. Okay, for example, that's the reason we call them as a module is a collection of configuration files in a directory. For example, Terraform directory. I mean, this is our project directory. Okay, here what I will do, I will create one directory, AWS underscore instance. Okay, inside this directory, what we'll have, we'll have our main.tf file. Okay, main.tf and variable.tf file. Okay, so inside this directory I will be having two different files. Okay, again inside this Terraform, what I will do, I will use, well, I will create one more directory called development. Okay, and inside this I will create one file main.tf. Okay, and then again if we have the requirement for one more EC2 for the production environment, I can use prod as my directory name, and inside this I will have one main.tf file. Okay, so basically Okay, this will be our root module, because in this root module we have written our configuration what needs to be done. Okay, and these are our sub modules. Okay, for two different environments I will be having two different sub modules. Okay, so this will be my root module, and main.tf and prod.tf, I mean the production directory, and the main direct development directory will be my root sub modules. Okay, so whenever I am trying to execute something from development, so what I will do, this main.tf will be calling this aws underscore instance as the source. Ante pratisari we will not rewrite the same piece of code. What I will do, I will write the code in my main.tf and var.tf in my root module, and then in development branch what I will do, I will pass my module. Okay, one second guys, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, understood. So modules are nothing, I mean there is no such concept modules, and also basically modules are a configuration file directories. Instead of writing the same piece of code again and again, what we'll do, we'll call the module root module key, we'll call them from the sub modules. Okay, so for example, if I want to create this, okay, so if you'll see this directory structure, okay, if you'll see this directory structure, I have created one Terraform project. Okay, inside this project I have created one aws underscore instance. This is my root module, and development is my environment. Okay, so I have created one file, I mean directory called development. Okay, inside aws underscore instance I have written one main.tf. Okay, so this is my main.tf file. Okay, so let me remove this, only one instance what we have. Okay, so this is my main.tf file, and I am calling one ami. So if I click this variables.tf, so this is one empty variable. I have just declared the variable, but I haven't passed it. Okay, if you want we can pass, if you don't want we can ignore as well. Okay, so if I'll go to my development one, main.tf. Okay, in this main.tf I am calling the block name as module. Okay, and this will be the logical name, and then source from where it needs to be picked. Okay, source it will be checking in aws underscore instance. This is nothing but path. Two dots represents basically Terraform, and then aws underscore instance. Okay, so where do we have our main.tf? So I am passing my source from where the main.tf file should be picked up. Okay, and then instead of passing my variables in variables.tf, what I have did, I have passed my variable in the module block ami. So this ami id needs to be picked. Okay, so once this is done, okay, pwd, okay, see terraform underscore project and then development. Okay, so currently I'm in my development directory. Now I want to execute my terraform init. If you see this, I haven't written any piece of code. This is just a module block, and I'm calling to, I'm calling the AWS underscore instance directory where we have our main.tf. Okay. Once this is done, then let me use Terraform apply. Okay. If I'll open this, if I'll scroll up, okay, see here it is calling from this particular aws underscore instance dot web server. From this particular module we are trying to create one instance. Okay, so if I'll do yes, then what this will do, this will create one EC2 instance for us. Okay, so similarly if you have one more environment, so ఇది ఎప్పుడు యూజ్ అవుతుంది? Basically when do we use such kind of, I mean when do we use modules and all? If we want to use the same configuration for different environments. For example, as we discussed earlier, we have three environments, that is ITT, UAT and production. So what we can do, I can create a new directory and copy and paste. That's one use case. But pratisari ala cheyadam is also not good. Okay, that is also not a best practice. That's the reason what we can do, we can create different directory and a module block can be used. Instead of writing the same piece of code again and again, we can use module which will help us to call the existing main.tf file. Okay, see, one resource has been added. Okay, so similarly if you want to create one more production instance, for example, okay, so what I can do, I can create one directory inside this. One more directory, this will be my production. Okay, under production what I can do, I can create one new file, this will be my main.tf. Okay, and I can configure the module. Okay, instead of dev, now I can call as prod. Source will be same, right? So because in this directory we have our main.tf. Okay, so for example for production environment you want to use the AMI, different AMI, so I will just change the AMI ID. If you want to change the instance type from T2 micro to T2 large, then I will write the instance type here. Okay, so this is how we can replicate, I mean reuse again and again with the same existing files. Okay, this will be commonly asked in interviews as well. If you want to replicate or if you want to use the same resource file for different environments, what you will be doing? In that case, we can say that we can use Terraform modules, which is nothing but a set of configurations file inside the directory. So we have root module, that is AWS underscore instance, and out of this root module we are calling our development and production environments. Clear?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Cool. I will share this note so that you can practice as well. Okay. So, and then we have one more concept called Terraform workspaces. Acha, before talking to the modules, okay. So let me show. So we also have some default modules available in the registry. So this is what I have customized it. I have written my own module, right? So we have default modules as well. So basically, as in plugins, we have three type of plugins, right? One is official, one is partner, and one is community. Similar to these modules also, we have two different type of modules. One is official, that is provided by Terraform, and one is community. Anyone or any user can develop and push it back to the registry. Okay, so if I'll go to my Terraform registry, okay, this is our registry, right? If I'll go to modules, okay, okay, here we can find the module section. If I'll click this, here we can find the default modules. Okay, so in default, I mean we can find the existing modules. If I'll click this IAM, okay, so this will be the version of module, so which version you want to use, and then here we have the examples how to use the module instructions. Okay, with the help of these modules, what we can do, we can download the existing module and we can use them as per our changes. Okay, and then we have one concept called Terraform workspaces. Okay, and one more thing, if you see this, okay, under development directory we have our state file. Okay, this will be not found in the main root module, so the state file will get generated in our directories from where we have executed our main.tf. Okay, so that's one thing. And then we have one more concept called Terraform workspaces. So basically workspaces is also similar to modules, means workspaces is also similar to modules, means basically if you want to create multiple projects or multiple environments using the same configuration, we can use Terraform workspaces, similar to GitHub branches. In GitHub we have branches, right? So similar to this, we can see Terraform workspaces as well. Workspaces and modules ki, there is not much difference. Both are almost same. There is no difference. Okay, I will show you the words exactly the difference can be. Okay, so for example, instead of creating this directory, for let me delete these directories. Okay, instead of creating these directories, okay, instead of creating these directories, what we can do is, this is in my terminal, right? Okay, instead of creating this directory, I can create a workspace. For example, if I want to create a workspace with the name project A, then I can use this command terraform workspace new and project A. Okay, if I'll click on this, okay, created and first switch to workspace project A. Okay, basically this command will help us to create a workspace where we can keep different configuration files for different environment. Okay, so project A has been created and currently we have been switched to that workspace. If you want to check that workspace list can be used, here we can see that was the default workspace which has been created by Terraform, and this is what we have created just now. Star represents this is our current position or current location where we are. Okay, currently I'm in project A workspace. Okay, so similar to this, if you want to select, I mean if you want to get back to the project A workspace, for example, if you want to go to default workspace, okay, then I can see this select command. For example, Terraform workspace select default. Okay, currently switch to default workspace. If you want to see the list, then I can see my current location. Okay, if you want to change to the workspace called project project, okay, project spelling, select, I need to use Terraform workspace select project. Okay, yeah, currently I have switched to my project. For example, in this again, let me create one file. Okay, main.tf. Okay, Mm, okay, let me use this example. I'm calling the variable as AMI. Okay, and then in variables.tf, what I am trying to do is I'm trying to use two different modules. Okay, so here I am using the type of variable as map, and here we have two different projects, that is project A and project B. For example, for project A we have different AMI ID, and for project B we have different AMI ID. Okay, so now when I'll execute my main.tf file, what will happen? Okay, so what I can do is, let me use this. Okay, let me try to execute this and see. Okay, Terraform init and then Terraform apply. In an empty directory. Yeah. Okay, we have our configuration in AWS instance, right? Terraform init. What happened? AWS plus resource type was not correct.
ఫైల్ ని సేవ్ చేయలేదన్నా మనం.
Variables. Okay, let me save. Okay, as a file init చేసా కాబట్టి that will not be a problem. Okay, and then I have saved my file. Same concept. Workspace ఉంటే ఏమవుతుందంటే by default we can call the workspace name as a variable. Modules ఉంటే same. I mean, instead of using the same configurations file or writing up the same configuration files again and again, we can reuse the existing one. Workspace is also almost similar. Okay, and then I'll use Terraform apply. What this should do, this should also create one instance for us. But if you see this state file అనేది, this will get created in this particular directory terraform.tf. Okay, if you have 3 workspaces, for example, okay, there has been some word.ami. Okay, there was some syntax error. Okay, so basically once this will get executed, right? Okay, once this will get executed, we can see one directory called terraform.tf state.t directory created. For example, if you have 3 workspaces, then all the 3 workspaces related state files will be saved under this directory. Okay, terraform.tf.state.t. Okay, let me switch to this directory. Okay, if I do ls, okay, here I can see one state file related to project A. If you have project B, then I can see one more state file. Okay, normally what used to happen whenever we used to use terraform apply, right? So we can see our state files in the main directory, right? So in modules, what happened? State file got created into the sub modules, I mean the directory from where we have executed our terraform apply. Okay, so yeah, this is all, guys. I think we are good for now. I have also shared the interview question and answers. Okay, so I will also share these notes. Try to execute terraform modules as well as workspace. Okay, so try to create. If you see any issues, then let me know. Okay,
ఓకే.
with this we have completed our terraform. I think almost, I mean, all the topics we have covered in terraform. I don't think so we have left with anything. Okay, so we are good with this, and from tomorrow we'll be starting working on Ansible. Okay, tomorrow class will be at 11 o'clock itself. Okay, so let me stop the recording.